The sentence Kenneth Kimes Jr. wrote from a prison cell in 2018. He wrote it himself voluntarily, and it's the most disturbing thing I've ever read from a convicted killer. He wrote, Kenny, get to bed. Kenny, brush your teeth. Kenny, put the body in the duffel bag. I do as I'm told. The obedient son, always. That sentence tells you everything. Not about a monster, about a boy who was never given the option of being anything else. This is the story of Sante Kimes, one of the most dangerous women who ever lived, and her son Kenneth Kimes Jr., a man who was born into a world where murder was just another item on the to-do list. Santa Louis was born on July 24th, 1934, in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. From the very beginning, she was, by every account, extraordinary, magnetic, charismatic, the kind of woman who walked into a room and owned it before she said a single word. She was also, from a very early age, completely without conscience. As a child, she tortured her younger sister with fire. As a teenager, she learned to lie with a fluency that most people can't manage with the truth. She moved through men, through cities, through lives, leaving wreckage wherever she went and moving on before anyone could hold her accountable. By the 1960s, she was in Las Vegas, racking up arrests for petty theft, auto theft, larceny. She wasn't poor, she stole because she could, because rules were for other people, because the world, in Santa's mind, existed purely as a resource to be extracted. Then in 1971, she read a newspaper article about a recently divorced millionaire. His name was Kenneth Keith Kimes, a motor tycoon worth approximately $20 million. She tracked him down. She introduced herself. She turned on everything she had. He didn't stand a chance. They married in Clark County, Nevada on April 5th, 1981, and on March 24th, 1975, 6 years before they formally married, Sante gave birth to their son. She named him Kenneth Kimes Jr. She called him Kenny, and from the moment he could walk, she began building him. Not raising him, building him, the way you build a tool. Kenny's older half brother, Kent Walker, Santa's son from previous relationship, watched it happen from the very beginning. He later wrote it about in his memoir, Son of a Grifter. It described a childhood where all the food they ate was shoplifted, where Santa would send a young Kent through windows to break into houses and steal what she wanted, where crime wasn't a secret, it was the family business, discussed as casually as homework. When Kenny was born, Kent was 12 years old enough to understand exactly what was happening, old enough to know his little brother was in danger. He tried to protect Kenny. He tried for years. He failed. The Kimes family lived in a world that looked, from the outside, like absolute privilege. A sprawling oceanfront mansion on Portlock Road in Honolulu, Hawaii. Properties in Las Vegas. A lifestyle that included White House receptions. Sante had convinced people Kenneth was an ambassador, a lie that somehow worked, and the kind of social access that money and charm can buy. But behind the facade, Santa was burning it all down, literally. She tortured their Honolulu mansion twice, in 1978 and again in 1990, to collect insurance money. She enslaved young Mexican women, bringing them from Central America to work in her homes without pay, threatening deportation if they refused. In 1985, she was arrested for that federal slavery charges and sentenced to 5 years in federal prison. She served three, and while she was in prison, her husband Kenneth tried to give young Kenny something approaching a normal life. He failed too, because the moment Santa was released in 1989, she came back. and Kenny, now a teenager, had already been shaped by everything he had witnessed: the thieving, the arson, the manipulation, the lesson repeated every day of his life that other people existed to be used. Then on March 28, 1994, Kenneth Kimes died of a brain aneurysm. The money was now Santa's, and without her husband, the one person who might have slowed her down, there was nothing standing between Sante and whatever she decided to do next. Kenny was 19 years old. He had no other frame of reference for the world, no other model of how to live in it, no other person he trusted more than his mother. And his mother had decided it was time to start killing people. The first confirmed murder was David Caston. Caston was a businessman and a family friend. He had made the mistake of helping Sante with a real estate fraud, forging paperwork to make it appear he had purchased properties from her late husband. When the bank started investigating, Sante called Caston and threatened him. She needed him silenced. On the morning of March 14th, 1998, Casden's body was found in a dumpster at Los Angeles International Airport. A single gunshot to the back of the head. Kenny later confessed that he and his mother had killed him together. He was 23 years old. But David Casden wasn't their only victim. In September 1996, a Bahamian banker named Syed Bilal Ahmad, who managed Santa's offshore accounts, began asking questions she didn't want answered. Kenny later confessed that he and his mother drugged Ahmad, drowned him in a bathtub in Nassau, and dumped his body offshore. It was never found. No charges were ever filed. And before that, in 1991, a man named Homer Holmgren, Santa's awesome partner, told his family he was traveling to Costa Rica with the Kimes family. He was never seen again. Kenny later revealed that his mother confessed to him she had killed Holmgren by hitting him in the back of the head with a hammer while riding in the backseat of a car. Three people, three deaths, and Kenny present all of it, complicit in some, watching in others. The obedient son, always. In the summer of 1998, Santa Cam set her sights on Erin Silverman. Let me tell you who Erin Silverman was, because she deserves more than a footnote. Erin Zambelli was born on April 17, 1916, in New Orleans, Louisiana. She trained as a ballerina under the legendary choreographer Mikhail Fokin. She performed in the Corps de Ballet at Radio City Music Hall. She appeared in the 1937 Broadway musical Virginia. She was, by every account, a force of nature. Petite, 5 feet tall, bright red hair, 82 years old, and still one of the most vibrant human beings in the New York City. After marrying multimillionaire real estate developer Samuel Silverman in 1947 and settling in a 5-story limestone townhouse at 20 East 65th Street in Manhattan's Upper East Side, she built a life that was genuinely extraordinary. She hosted lavish dinner parties. She was friends with actors, politicians, musicians. Actor Daniel Day-Lewis once rented an apartment in her townhouse. Singer Chaka Khan was a regular tenant. At the age of 59, with no prior education beyond high school, she enrolled at Columbia University and excelled. She was 82 years old. She had no children. She rented out the apartments in her townhouse, not really for the money, but because she liked company. She liked people. That kindness is what killed her. Santa and Kenny had been watching Irene for months, studying her. Santa had made a recorded phone call months earlier, pretending to be from a government agency to extract Irene's social security number. Irene, being smart, didn't fall for it. It didn't matter. They had a plan. In July 1998, A young man calling himself Manny Gurin knocked on Eden's door and asked to rent one of our apartments. He was 6'1", dark hair, green eyes, quiet. He paid the $6,000 monthly rent in cash. Manny Gurin did not exist. His name was Kenneth Kimes Jr. Almost immediately, Erin's staff grew uneasy. Every time Manny walked through the fire and up the marble stairs, he turned his face away from the security camera. He barely spoke to anyone. Some nights, an older woman would slip into his apartment after dark, introduced only as Eva. She avoided conversations, left before sunrise. Erin noticed. She started keeping a diary, writing down her observations about a strange new tenant. She told her staff she wanted him gone. She was planning to evict him. She ran out of time. On the morning of July 5th, 1998, Independence Day weekend, Erin Sullivan was last seen inside her townhouse at 20 East 61st Street wearing a nightgown. By afternoon, she was gone. No forced entry, no signs of a struggle, no body, just gone. Our housekeeper reported her missing. Detectives from the 19th arrived. They searched the apartment rented by Manny Gurin. The bed had been stripped of its comforter. The bathroom had a shower curtain rod, but no curtain. The trash contained a spool of rope, wads of used duct tape. Someone had packaged something in that apartment. The detective who would lead the investigation, NYPD Detective John Resnick, immediately knew this was not a disappearance. This was a body removal. And that same evening, 7 miles away near the New York Hilton on 6th Avenue, federal agents arrested a mother and a son on an outstanding warrant for a stolen car from Utah. The mother, Sante Kimes, 64 years old, white blazer, composed. The son, Kenneth Kimes Jr., 23 years old, dark hair, green eyes, 6'1". When agents searched them, they found 2 loaded firearms, brass knuckles, plastic handcuffs, wigs and disguises, a date rape drug, a stun gun, and a set of keys to the townhouse at 20 East 61st Street. They found a forged deed, signing Erin Solomon's multi-million-dollar townhouse over to a shell corporation owned by Sante Kimes. Erin's signature, practiced over and over on a page after page of the notebook they carried, and in a bag that Kenny had checked at the Plaza Hotel before the arrest, over a dozen notebooks detailing the entire operation. Erin's daily schedule, a social security number, the plan, written out step by step. Sante looked at the agents and said, "There is no crime, there is no body." He and his mother had attacked Erin Solomon in her bedroom. Sante used a stun gun. Kenny tackled the 5-foot, 115-pound woman and strangled her while his mother turned on the television to mask the sound. Then, his words, she became imminent. They wrapped her body in plastic, put it in a duffel bag. Kenny carried it through the building, navigating on the security cameras he had memorized over weeks. He put the bag in the trunk of their stolen Lincoln Town car. Then he and his mother drove to Trump Cafe at Trump Tower in Midtown Manhattan. They sat at a table. They drank coffee. They ate pastries, with Erin Suleiman in the trunk. Later, Kenny dumped her body at a construction site in Hoboken, New Jersey. She was never found. Erin Suleiman, former ballerina, Columbia University student, hostess, philanthropist, one of the most alive human beings in New York City, was murdered for a building. She has no grave. Her body is somewhere in New Jersey and nobody knows exactly where. On May 18, 2000, in Manhattan courtroom, the jury voted unanimously. On the very first poll, to convict Sante and Kenneth Kimes of murder. It was the first case in New York State history where someone was convicted of murder with no body, no eyewitness, no forensic evidence, and no confession. Just the notebooks and the weight of everything else. State Supreme Court Justice Rena K. Oliver sentenced Sante to 120 years to life prison. Kenny received 126 years to life. 4 years later, facing a second murder trial in California for David Gaston's death and the possibility of death penalty, Kenny made a deal. He confessed to everything, testified against his mother, gave investigators every detail they asked for. Sante sat in the courtroom and watched her son testify against her. It was the one thing, by all accounts, that actually broke her. Sante Kimes died in prison on May 19, 2014, at Bedford Hills Correctional Facility in New York. She was 79 years old. She maintained her innocence until the day she died. Kenneth Kimes Jr. is still alive. He is in his late 40s. He is serving life without the possibility of parole at Richard J. Donovan Correctional Facility near San Diego, California. He has spoken about rehabilitation, about regret, about education. My whole life and criminality is a study on the outcome of lack of prevention. There are many kids like me who are on the road to destruction. And here's the question that will follow you out this video. Kenny Kimes was born to a woman who began grooming him before he could form memories, who taught him that theft was normal before he learned to read, who pulled him out of school and made crime his education, who surrounded him with fraud, arson, and eventually murder. So gradually that by the time it escalated, he had no reference point for what normal looked like. His older brother Kent escaped, barely. It took him decades and enormous pain to pull free of their mother's orbit. Kenny never made it out. The court said he was guilty, and legally he was. He strangled Irin Suleiman with his own hands. He helped drown Sail Bilal Ahmad. He was present when David Gaston was shot. But here's what the courts couldn't answer. When the person who is supposed to protect you from the world is the one building you into a weapon. When the only love you ever known comes with the instruction on where to put the body. What exactly was Kenny Kimes supposed to become?